Welcome back to the Under 24 podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy, and I'm joined here with Jason again. And so we have a lot to talk about, including the NBA Finals. So let's get right into it. So the NBA Finals are underway after Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and Chris Paul had amazing games to help the Suns take Game 1 against the Bucks. After being listed doubtful to play, Giannis played in Game 1, even though he did not look 100%. So after looking at each team, who do you think will win the NBA Finals? And how many games will it take? And who will be Finals MVP?
Well, I'm going to say Suns in 6. And Chris Paul is going to be the Finals MVP. I think the Suns are just a hard team to game plan for because there's no real weaknesses. You know, they have three-point shooting with Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, rebounding with DeAndre Ayton, leadership, especially by Chris Paul, who has been a great leader and a playmaker for them. They also have playmaking and great defense. So there's no real weaknesses for the Suns. The Bucks stars, however, lack consistency, especially Chris Middleton sometimes. Even though he played really well yesterday Game 1 with 29 points. But there's just no real way to guard the Suns pick and roll. Like Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton ran that pick and roll at least, I think, 8 to 10 times. And it was just buckets every time because Brook Lopez would have to switch on Chris Paul, and that did not work out for them. Or DeAndre Ayton would get a smaller man on him and get the bucket inside. So I just don't think there's any real way the Bucks can win this game unless the Suns, especially CP3 and Devin Booker, go on a cold streak. And I think that's very unlikely. So I'm taking the Suns to win with Chris Paul being the MVP.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think what we saw in Game 1 was the Suns were moving up the court really quickly. The Bucks had 14 turnovers, which turned into 16 Suns points, and the Suns had 20 fast break points. If you saw what the Suns were doing, they're moving up the court really quickly, and with that, they had attacked the paint. And at the free throw line, as a team, they only missed one free throw. And if you look at the Bucks, they didn't even crack 50% at the free throw line. So with all that being said, I also agree. I say Suns in 6 as well. They have all the tools necessary to win, and Chris Paul, Devin Booker, the leadership, and they have the role players are playing well, like Cameron Payne and Torrey Craig.
Yeah.
So if the Bucks want to win the series, I think they need a way to defend the paint with Giannis being not 100%, and they need their stars to play more minutes. Finals MVP for me, I would say it would be Chris Paul, the way that they're looking now, but it could definitely be Devin Booker.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think Devin Booker has also been playing really great, but I feel like Chris Paul has just taken this team to another level. Do you think they should keep Brook Lopez in the game? Because he scored 17 points last night, in Game 1, but he got cooked by Chris Paul.
Yeah, I feel like that's something you might want to look at. Maybe you want to insert Bobby Portis, but I don't really see anyone that can defend the paint that well, especially because Giannis is out. So it will be really hard to tell. Maybe you still want to start Brook Lopez, but give more minutes to other players to just test out your rotation to see who will fit more. Because the playoffs are about adjustments, and whoever makes the best adjustments win games.
Yeah, I think that's definitely right. I think they need to keep. They can't switch on those. They have to stay. They have to play real good defense, old-fashioned defense, and just stay on it. Don't let Brook Lopez switch on him because you're just following in their trap. That's what I think.
Yeah. That would be hard to tell, with a lot of pressure going around, but we'll see what happens in Game 2. So with two small market teams playing for a ring and only one player having finals experience, certain players will have to step up for each team. So will the stars or role players be more important in this series?
I think it's very obviously the stars. And each team will only win depending on how their stars play. I know CP3, Chris Paul has shown up. He scored 32 last game and had plenty of assists. And Devin Booker has been playing very good as well. But if the question was which team stars would make the difference in this series, I think it would be the Bucks, because every player on the Suns has showed up and done their job, whether it be stars or role players. They've all done great things. They've all played either great defense or scored a lot or been aggressive. They're all just playing to their roles to perfection. But the Bucks stars, on the other hand, are not looking like stars. Like Drew Holiday only scored 10 points on 4 for 14 shooting last game, and you just can't win whenever one of your big three only scores 10 points. Giannis scored 20, but that's excusable because of his injury. He wasn't looking 100%. Chris Middleton played great, but that just wasn't enough. I think for the Bucks to win, all three stars have to show up, and each have to average 20 to 30 points a game. And some scoring role players, like Bobby Portis, need to average 15 points per game as well, because they can't do this unless they're putting up buckets. And the Bucks can only win if their big three plays like a dominant big three.
I have to disagree with you there. I think for the Suns, the stars have to show up. But for the Bucks, I feel like the role players need to show up. The role players like Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez and Pat Connaughton, those are the key factors to helping the Bucks win this series. We know Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, and Giannis, they all show out, even though the stat sheet didn't show that Drew Holiday did well offensively. I feel like on the defensive end, he was pretty good and held his own on defense. So I feel like with Bobby Portis, he didn't have a great game in Game 1, and Brook Lopez didn't have that good of a game in Game 1 either. So those players need to step up more. We need to see that Game 6 against Atlanta. We need to see those types of players when Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez showed out. So we know that if Giannis isn't playing well, Drew Holiday can step up. And even though he didn't in Game 1, he's done it previously in the playoffs. So Drew Holiday can easily step up and be the number 1 or number 2. Chris Middleton has been going crazy since Giannis went injured, and he's been leading the team. So we know that he will show up and he'll be there. It's just all about the role players for the Bucks. But for the Suns, it's all about their stars. CP3, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton are really good at specific things, like CP3 is the leader and the general, and Devin Booker will get you buckets. And Ayton, he will finish at the rim and get you boards easily. So with most of the Suns team being young, they need their stars to show up and set the example. For the Bucks, the role players need to show up.
I think that's fair. I think you have good points there, but I feel like without the stars on the Bucks, this team isn't going anywhere. Like the role players are still role players. They're not stars. So those Game 6 Hawks, that was a great game by Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez, but that's not going to be a norm. And I know playoffs, you're supposed to elevate your game, but role players becoming stars, that was only Reggie Jackson. He played really great, but I don't think Brook Lopez can step up, especially whenever they're using Chris Paul and the pick and roll against him like that. So I think the Buck stars are going to be really important for them because they're all two-way players. They're defensive and offensive great players. And for them and the Bucks to win, I feel like Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, Giannis all need to average 20 to 30 points per game. Chris Middleton and Giannis need to average 25 to 30. I would say Giannis should average more than 30, but with his injury, I feel like there's some excuse there.
Yeah, it will be kind of tough. I trust Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday when Giannis isn't 100%, but it all depends. You made a good point. It all depends on if the stars play well, and that's how the role players can step in. But yeah, we'll just have to see in Game 2.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to the NFL with a lot of player movements going on. We'll talk about how it will help each team and each player. So we'll go through the NFL with a lot of player movements going around the league, including trades and free agents, signing with different teams. There are a lot of players on new squads. So which player will have a breakout year on their new team?
My player choice is going to be Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold has always been a bust since he was drafted by the Jets at number 3 overall. But how can you blame him? Like, they had a terrible roster. They had no O-line, very little help on the wide receiver core, and they had a terrible coach. Why would you hire Adam Gase as your coach to help a rookie quarterback who's been playing for 3 years now? I mean, like it was just a terrible team, terrible roster, terrible coach. It was just a very hard environment for him to thrive in. And now I feel like now that he's playing with the Panthers and a great coach, a great young coach in Matt Rule, and offensive weapons like Christian McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson, and DJ Moore, along with a pretty good offensive line, I feel like he's going to do great. I think he'll probably get around 4,500 passing yards. He'll get probably 25, 27 touchdowns at least. I think he's going to have a great improvement in this new roster, new organization. And I feel like because everyone believes in him, I think he's going to get his confidence back and unlock his actual potential with Coach Matt Rule running a QB-friendly offense. So I think he's going to be one breakout candidate to watch.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, in New York, he was under a bad system, and you said it. He basically had no help on the team. He was under Adam Gase, who didn't really help, and the only thing he helped at was getting the number 2 pick this year. And now Sam Darnold's not even on the team anymore. So being traded to Carolina will definitely help. And if you saw players like Robbie Anderson, who was on the Jets before, he's improved his game, and he's been a really reliable wide receiver for the Panthers. So for Sam Darnold to have reliable options like Anderson, DJ Moore, and an elite running back in Christian McCaffrey, I think he will benefit exceedingly. Like, he will be probably a great player on the Panthers team. But another QB I have in mind is Matthew Stafford. He has upgrades on both ends, and he's in a bigger market, which will help him elevate his game. I mean, this team was in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, so they definitely have the talent. The defense is stacked, and the receivers are good. So I feel like Matthew Stafford will also be a breakout player.
Yeah, I think that's a really great pick. I was trying to figure out which other quarterback moved, and then once you mentioned Matthew Stafford, I was like, oh yeah, that's a great pick. Yeah, I think he's going to do great. Now he has wide receivers, right, in the O-line. So, yeah. And he has Coach Sean McVay, and Sean McVay is one of the top offensive coaches in the NFL. But I want to talk about the team's expectations. For me, I think the Panthers' expectations with Sam Darnold for this year is probably going to be just to be second in the division in the NFC South. They're going to be competing with the New Orleans Saints for that. But since the Saints don't have a steady QB situation either, since the quarterback position is so important, I think they can compete with the Saints for that number 2 spot in the division behind the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And for the Rams, I think they're Super Bowl contenders. I think they're the next best team after the Buccaneers in the NFC. Right behind the Buccaneers, I feel like they're Super Bowl favorites in the NFC. I think they're better than the Seahawks. I think they're better than the Packers. Yeah, I just feel like they're a great team with Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey on the defensive end, Matthew Stafford, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp on the offensive end. I think they're just loaded with talent and great coaching. So I think they're going to be a Super Bowl contender in the NFC.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, especially with the things going around the teams in each division. Like both of these teams could easily be first, like the Rams. They could easily be first in the NFC West. And for the Panthers, they could be second, especially with New Orleans not having Drew Brees this season.
Yeah.
So with going to a new team, it can affect any player. So who will benefit the most from a change of scenery?
I think it's going to be Jadeveon Clowney. And I'm so happy that he's finally on a team where he'll have a chance to play great. Because he's always been expected to have high sack numbers ever since he came out of college, being the number 1 overall draft pick in the 2014 draft. But for what I've observed and what a lot of analysts say is that he's more of a run stopping defensive end. He'll help you on those first and second downs whenever those teams are trying to run to get extra yardage. And so because of that, people haven't considered him a top tier defensive end. But he plays very well when he has an elite opposite defensive end. Because when playing with J.J. Watt in 2017, he put 9.5 sacks. And in 2018, he put up 9 sacks. So now that he's playing with Myles Garrett, who is J.J. Watt dominant, J.J. Watt level dominant, I think he's going to be a star again. But the only way he'll be a star is if he doesn't have injuries ruin his season. So I feel like the one player who benefited the most from switching teams is Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah, in a way, I agree with you, but I went with a different player. I went with Edge Carl Lawson, who's signed with the New York Jets. I mean, in his rookie year with the Bengals, he logged 8.5 sacks, and he was looking to be a really good edge. But then he had some bad injuries and torn ACL and stuff, and then he just didn't really look the same. But last season, he had 44 quarterback pressures, fourth most in the league. And with signing with the Jets, I feel like he would be he would benefit this team tremendously. So with a new team and a younger squad, I feel like he will really benefit on that, help that team out. And I feel like he can be back to that rookie form where he had 8.5 sacks.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick. I feel like, especially with Robert Saleh coaching that defense, he played with Nick Bosa. He coached Nick Bosa in San Francisco. So I feel like he'll be able to help. What are you saying?
And they went to the Super Bowl that season.
Yeah, exactly. So he knows how to coach a defensive line. They've made other defensive line improvements too, and they already had Quentin Williams, who's a very good defensive tackle. Not Aaron Donald level, but who is?
Yeah.
But yeah. So Carl Lawson, I feel like he's going to be a top tier defensive end. I feel like people have been sleeping on him. I think the Bengals should have really kept him. Like, I don't know. They paid Trey Hendrickson the same amount of money just on one more year, the same rate just on one more year. But Trey Hendrickson only played good for one season, while Carl Lawson has been playing good. So I feel like that's a great pick, and I think he's going to do great in New York.
Yeah, so with that, all that being said in the NFL, let's go back to the NBA, and we'll talk about free agents and where players should sign. So with the NBA and free agency around the corner, there are a lot of key free agents this season, including DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, and Kawhi Leonard. So should Kawhi Leonard stay with the Clippers, or should he leave? And if he does, where should he go?
I'm going to say Kawhi Leonard should leave, actually. And I feel like this season was their best shot to win the title. With no LeBron or AD or other superstar teams, no Jokic or any of them. But unfortunately, Kawhi got injured. Had he not, I felt like they would have made the finals and won, actually. I think they would have won the chip had Kawhi not been injured. But he did. So that kind of ruined their best shot at a title. And the Clippers have a great roster, but it's not good enough to compete with the Lakers, the other team in LA, or the Brooklyn Nets, or maybe even the 76ers or the Bucks. I don't know if it's good enough now, especially because they're going to have to deal with Reggie Jackson and Nicholas Batum being free agents. But since I say he would leave, I got to say where he should go. And I think that he should go to the Heat. And the Heat have a very good roster. And I think they're just one superstar away from being a contender. They're already a playoff lock almost every season now with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. But that one star will make them championship favorites. They already have Jimmy Butler, they already have Bam Adebayo, and they have several great role players. And I think if Kawhi Leonard signed with the Heat, they'd have the best odds to make the finals from the East besides the Nets. And I think they'll have a pretty good chance to beat the Nets if he goes there. I don't think he'll leave because he wants to stay in his hometown, Los Angeles. But if he leaves, he should definitely go to the Miami Heat.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Kawhi leaving the Clippers will probably be unlikely, but I think he should leave. When Kawhi was out during that the Sun series, Paul George really showed out and at being the number one option, and they almost made the finals without him. And you also have to look at the age. I mean, you said it that this was the final year that they could have, this is finally that they could have made the finals, and I agree. Like age-wise, this team's peak might only be next season if it wasn't this year. I mean, they have older players like Nicholas Batum, Serge Ibaka, Patrick Beverly, Rajon Rondo. So I mean, Kawhi going to a younger team to win more championships is probably something he should think about. And with that, I think he should go to a team, like you said, Miami or Dallas. They are both pursuing him heavily this offseason, and they want a player like him to move into championship contention. For Miami, I feel like he would really help them as Kawhi will have his Kyle Lowry per se, with him being a leader and a vocal player on the court, and with players like Bam and guys like Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero, I think this team will be really good next season. And for Dallas, they have enough cap space to sign him, so they could easily go for Kawhi. They have a young superstar in Luka Doncic, and with Kristaps Porzingis sliding over to the third option, he could easily benefit there. Another team to keep in mind is probably New York. They have enough cap space to sign him as well, but their timeline is a bit longer. So I don't know if Kawhi would want to wait a couple more years just to get into championship contention.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think the Mavs are also another great option for Kawhi, and I know you're rooting for that too.
Yeah.
Yes. I just want to ask a question. Who's their coach again? I forgot.
Who's?
The Mavs coach. I forgot who they hired.
They hired Jason Kidd and GM Nico Melli, who is working with Nike.
Yeah, okay. Do you think that Jason Kidd, like, let's say the Kawhi goes to the Mavs, do you think Jason Kidd is like a good coach? Do you think he's the right coach for them?
I feel like when it comes to like player relationships and player development, he'll be really good, but I just don't know how he'll come to his rotations and adjustments and like those little things. So it will be hard to tell what Jason Kidd will do because we haven't seen him have a head coaching job since 2018. So I feel like he's learned from it, especially since he won that championship in 2020 with the Lakers. But I can't say for sure. But I feel like he will be good, especially when you have superstar players in Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think Jason Kidd, like personally, whenever he was on the Bucks or the Nets as their coach, he was a pretty bad coach. But I think I agree with you. I think he's probably learned from Frank Vogel being the 2020 champion, and I feel like that hopefully for the Mavs, that helped him out. That helped him out with playoff experience.
Yeah, for sure. So Kyle Lowry, I mean, he's a big name this free agency, and he's an unrestricted free agent. With the Raptors going toward a rebuilding phase, it's probably best for him to sign to another team. So which team is the best fit for Kyle Lowry?
I think it's been talked about for a long time, and people call it a match made in heaven. So I'm going to say the 76ers. Like I said, this has been talked about for a long time, at least from last season. Kyle Lowry's hometown is Philadelphia, and he has said that he wants to go home. And I know the fans in Philadelphia would love him for his tough and gritty play and his awesome effort on the court, taking all those charges, putting his body on the line, sacrificing himself for the good of their team. And I feel like he'd be a great fit on the 76ers with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, because when Ben Simmons is on the court, you need shooting. You need shooting, especially when Joel Embiid is there on the court too. And I feel like Kyle Lowry will help Seth Curry and Danny Green help space the floor for Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. And I feel like he's going to add, along with shooting, playmaking, defense, and leadership. I think he'd get them a fighting chance to beat a team like Brooklyn in the playoffs. Not a favorite over Brooklyn, but a fighting chance. And I just feel like Kyle Lowry and the 76ers, like I said, seem like a match made in heaven.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Kyle Lowry is like a mini Chris Paul. Like, he's a leader. He can make the players around him better, and he isn't afraid of anyone. So he would obviously make any team he goes to way better. Some places that could carve out cap space is like New York, Miami, both LA teams, and the 76ers. And I agree. I feel like the 76ers and Kyle Lowry are a perfect fit. But the thing about that is about cap space and how much money they have. They're paying Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, and Ben Simmons $30 million. So it'll be hard to figure out how that goes, especially if you have to do a sign-in trade of some sort where you send Seth Curry and possibly George Hill away. So it will be hard to figure out that cap situation. But if not the 76ers, I feel like a team would be like the Miami Heat or the Los Angeles Lakers. Like, for the Heat, he can fit into that Heat culture, and he'll be that leader on the court. For the Lakers, he'll be a great playmaker with LeBron getting older, and I feel like he would really elevate that team. But for both situations, I feel like they already have that leader, with Lakers having LeBron and Miami having Jimmy Butler. So for Kyle Lowry, it all depends on how the players and cap space works out. Because I feel like 76ers are the perfect fit, but I don't know how they'll make that money work.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there is an issue with cap space with all these teams that are a good fit for Kyle Lowry, but that's the price whenever all these teams are title contenders. So talking about cap space, I know Ben Simmons isn't exactly a favorite of the 76ers fans anymore. So do you think it will be worth it for the Philadelphia 76ers to trade Ben Simmons for Kyle Lowry? I mean, it seems kind of lopsided towards the Raptors, but to get that cap space and that fans happy, I feel like it has a good chance of being worth it. What do you think?
I feel like we want to test Ben Simmons a little bit more, because he said he's going to fix his jump shot. He's been working this offseason. He even didn't want to participate in the Olympics just to work on this offseason to work on his jump shot. Yeah. So if everything is true and he actually does want to work on his jump shot and he gets better, I feel like we want to keep him. I mean, you look at his age. It's not like he's 30 or like 29, 28. Like, this guy is pretty young. This guy was number 1 pick in the 2016 draft. So it's not like he's an older player. He still has a lot of time to develop. And with this team, the Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris, this is a younger team. So a couple more years, it wouldn't hurt them. Like, they were championship contenders, but I feel like next season, if they, with a more developed squad, I feel like this team will be really good.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I don't think the Simmons trade for Kyle Lowry would be worth it either. I think they have to try to figure out some other way to clear cap space. But do you think any of these teams that we mentioned, do you think Kyle Lowry on them would put them on a level with the Nets? Do you think there's any team here that Kyle Lowry being on it will help them give a good chance to beat the Nets?
I mean, talent-wise, no. Like, when you have 3 Hall of Famers on the Nets, like James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant, I don't think no one can really stop them. The only thing that stopped him this year was injuries, and I feel like chemistry. James Harden and Kyrie Irving, they were both in and out in the playoffs. And so, talent-wise, I don't think so. But, like, if you look at the late game situation, the close games at end of games, and just those pressure situations, I feel like whatever team Kyle Lowry goes to would be better. If you get what I mean.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think any team that he goes to will be better, but there's no real team, like you said, talent-wise, other than the Nets, that will get on the Nets level, even with Kyle Lowry on it. I think that's a great point.
Yeah. So we talked a lot today about NBA and the NFL. So it'll be cool to see who wins the finals, how free agency will play out, and how the NFL season will come to shape starting this year. So thank you for listening to the Under 24 podcast. Make sure that you subscribe, follow us on whatever platform you're listening to. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Under 24. And we hope that you enjoy these playoffs, especially you, Jason. The finals.
Yeah, I'm going to enjoy it. I hope you do too.
Yes. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.